What's up you guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Sienna Barley and I create content around style and food. And if you guys want to go and check out my style content, please head over to my Instagram. I will leave my handle up here. So today's video is going to be a cooking video, and before we get to that, I just want to say thank you so much for all the feedback you gave me in my previous video. I shot a monthly favorites with my friend Sean. It's something very new to my YouTube channel and I hope it's something that I can continue creating in the foreseeable future. It was so much fun, guys, to shoot it. It had so many random stories. It was filled with so much fun and laughter, and I hope you guys are going to go and check it out. And if you're interested, we were just covering a few favorites. For example, like monthly favorite book. We talked about our favorite food and restaurant. We talked about our favorite TV series or movie, and I think we also talked about our favorite quotes. So it was so much fun, informative. So you guys, please go and check it out and leave a comment in that video. So for today's video, I will be making lettuce wrap in 3 different variations. Now I am trying to live a healthier lifestyle. This doesn't mean that I have said goodbye to the chocolates and the cakes that I love. No, as with anything in life, things should be done in moderation. So I still enjoy that, but I'm trying to just be a bit healthy, and that for me means eliminating carbohydrates in my dinner recipes. So I have had wraps in different variations. I've had them like with tortilla wraps, I've had chapati based wraps, and they have been very delicious, but I'm trying to eliminate the carbohydrates, so that means I had to look for something else to replace, and for me lettuce was like the best ingredient to use. So I am going to be using veggies, and I'm going to be using chicken. Now my preference to chicken is just because when you compare white meat and red meat takes more time to digest in your system, and the idea of having a light dinner for me means just having something light enough for my body to be able to digest in an easier manner, in an easier fashion. So red meat for me was not an option. This doesn't mean that you cannot use red meat in your recipe. Of course, use whatever you like. You can have this in any variation that is to your taste preference. So please don't limit yourself, don't restrict yourself. Please enjoy this recipe in the variations that you like. So without further ado, let's get into cooking and enjoy the different variations that we're going to be making today. So I'm starting off with some cold pressed sunflower oil. This is from Enkai Tong. And as with any cold pressed oil, you just have to make sure that your pan is not too hot, because you want all the nutrients in the oil to remain intact. And then I'm adding a cupful of red onions, and then just cook it down. Make sure they do not overcook. I'm adding a teaspoon of my homemade garlic and ginger paste, and I always make this beforehand just so that anytime I'm ready to cook, my paste is ready for use. So just mix that up. I normally don't cook my onions too much. I just make sure that just before they get golden brown, I add my next ingredient, and that's a cupful of cut up carrots. And then just keep on stirring this together, keep on stirring. And when I was preparing this, I just cut up all my vegetables in the same shape, because I just thought it would be visually appealing once I'm doing my plating. And then next, I am adding a cupful of mushrooms. I love mushrooms so much in a vegetarian recipe just because it's so meaty and it just gives you the illusion of meat, but yet it's a vegetarian dish. And then lastly, I am adding a cupful of zucchini that I'd already chopped beforehand, as I've mentioned. So just keep cooking everything down, keep stirring, and I'm telling you guys, this recipe is so packed with flavor just because of the freshly ground garlic and ginger we've used. And now I'm using some black pepper to season. And in one of my previous videos, I talked about repurposing containers, and this is one of the containers that I repurposed for my black pepper. And I'm also adding my Himalayan pink salt, and that's my salt of preference because it's one of the healthiest salts that you can use as compared to like table salt or even sea salt. So once that is cooked on a bit, just add a tablespoon of freshly chopped coriander just to give it flavor. And I always add my coriander right at the end so that your food is still so packed with its flavor as you serve. So next, we're moving on to our second recipe, and I'm starting with the oil once again. So this is going to be a chicken recipe, and we're going to also add a cupful of red onions and cook it down just like we did in the first recipe. So as I mentioned again, make sure you don't burn your onions. Just cook it to slightly before it gets golden, and then I'm adding my ginger and garlic paste once again. And I always add it right at this point, just so that everything else you add after the garlic and ginger paste is still packed with its flavor. So I'm just going to cook that down for a bit. Keep stirring just to make sure that, nothing is burning and everything is cooking to perfection. Keep stirring that up. And then next I'll be adding like 2 tablespoons of cut up chives. I love chives so much because it's like a bit oniony, it's a bit herby, it's just like so filled with flavor, and I love it so much. And then lastly, I'm going to be adding a cupful of cut up basil. And I know most people use basil as garnish, but you can also cook with it. So everything is cooking just as I wanted, and now I'm just going to proceed to add my chicken. This is about 300 grams of diced chicken, and I already cut up some slices of chicken that we'll use in our next recipe, but that's coming shortly. So just keep mixing everything together. Just make sure that you're cooking on like a low to medium heat, just so that you don't want to overcook the chicken. At the same time, you don't want to undercook it, especially undercook, and that would be a big no-no. You don't want to get sick. So just make sure that you cook your chicken well. I'm adding freshly ground black pepper, and as well as my pink Himalayan salt for seasoning. And then just keep stirring everything, keep cooking it down. And then now I'll be adding my balsamic vinegar, and that's approximately like 2 tablespoons that you'll be seeing shortly. There we go. That's the balsamic vinegar that I use. And the reason why I'm also adding balsamic vinegar at this point is just because I don't want my chicken to be too dry, and at the same time balsamic vinegar gives it such a nice like lemony kind of flavor, and I think it merges so well with the basil, with the chives, with the garlic, with the ginger, everything we basically used today. So just add more seasoning if need be, and also you can also choose to add more balsamic vinegar. Just make sure that your mixture doesn't get too dry, but at the same time we do not want a soupy stew, just because as we plate it in the lettuce, we want everything to be nice and dry. Now this is our last recipe for the day. This is my sliced chicken, and as you can see, they're thin slices. I'm putting it in a flour mixture, and for this specific recipe, this was a request from my husband. I don't normally have this for dinner just because this has carbs in obviously in the flour itself. That's carbohydrates, that's gluten, and I'm trying not to have that for dinner, as I'd mentioned earlier. So this is his favorite recipe for the lettuce wraps. So the flour mixture has some dried majoram, some dried oregano, and some dried basil, and of course salt and pepper. And also just salt your chicken just before you put it in the flour mixture first, just so that you ensure that every layer that is going to be on the chicken has enough seasoning. And then you can see to my right I have the eggy mixture, and the eggy mixture I added a teaspoon of the garlic and ginger paste as well, so that as you bite into the chicken, every flavor you've added can be tasted. So this is how it's looking as it's cooking. And just make sure that you cook your chicken well. You do not want undercooked chicken. You have to make sure that your chicken is properly cooked, and so I just advise to cook it on medium heat so that it cooks well. Obviously you can also choose to finish it off in the oven if you so desire, but I'm telling you guys, these recipes are to die for. So now we're moving over to plating, and we're going to start with our first recipe, which is the fried vegetables. And one thing I must mention is that everything we've cooked today has to be cooled down to room temperature, just because anything hot served on the lettuce leaves is going to start cooking the leaves, and that's one thing we'd like to try and avoid. So be generous as you serve each leaf. I'm going to move over to the avocados because I'll be using it as garnish for my vegetable wrap. So just add some avocado slices to your liking, and don't forget to season your avocado with freshly ground black pepper and some salt. So we're going to move over to the second recipe, which is the basil and chives fried chicken. And as you can see, it's succulent, it's not dry, it's not too wet because we don't want it to be too soupy as we are serving it. And I'm also going to garnish it with some red chilies that have been pickled in balsamic vinegar, red wine vinegar, and some garlic. So that's just going to add even more flavor to our lettuce wrap. And then lastly, I'm going to move to the last wrap, which is like a schnitzel chicken. And this is my husband's favorite, as I mentioned. And I'm just trying to organize them. I sliced them already, trying to make them look pretty. And once I'm done with that, I'm just going to be adding some mustard. I'll drizzle it all over the chicken just so that we add more flavor. And then I forgot to add some honey, so please add honey, so it's like a honey mustard dressing. And I also added some mayonnaise, which you don't see on this clip. So I forgot to add apples that I already sliced for my other chicken recipe. So just add that quickly in between the chilies, and this is exactly how it looks. It's hearty, it's filling, it's light, it's delicious, and most importantly, it's healthy. So that's the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe, and as I mentioned earlier, it's very adaptable. You guys can use different ingredients according to what is in your kitchen. And if you choose to recreate this recipe, please don't forget to tag me on Instagram at sienna.barley. And with that, guys, please consider subscribing to my channel so that you can just keep on encouraging me to grow. And thank you for joining me, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.